Mm. So it's still morning, so I can still say good morning. Oh, hey, everybody. So welcome to our inaugural virtual wellness summit. It's called Glow from Burnout to Brilliance. And I'm so super grateful to have you all here today. So from wherever you're joining us, I know we all have our busy lives, and so it's easy to feel like we're just getting by, moving from one thing to the next, and sometimes that leads us to burnout. So today we're taking this time to pause, to reconnect and explore. Hold on, I'm just going to admit somebody here and explore what it means to glow from within. And this summit is more than just about self-care. It's about finding balance and creating rituals that nourish us on a deeper level. Especially as we head into the darker months, we have an amazing lineup of speakers who are going to bring their own unique approach to wellness. And here at 11 o'clock, well, at 10, we had Reiki and Chakra. And now at 11 o'clock, we have Bianca, who's going to be talking to us about holistic foods, nutrition, and also talking to us about herbal medicine. So we're gonna dive into that in a minute. So we have other speakers as well on this summit, talking about breath work and yoga and tarot and Kundalini codes and women's circles and so much more. But each of these practices offers something powerful. And our goal is to share these insights and tools that you can incorporate into your own life so that they can sustain your own inner brilliance. This is to empower you basically with some tools for yourself. And so make yourself comfortable. We talked about tea in the last one. So hopefully you've had a chance to make yourself a cup of tea in the pause and get settled into this experience together. And I hope you're going to leave today feeling inspired and refreshed and ready to carry this glow with you long after this summit ends. So thank you for joining us, and let's get started. So now we're going to have Bianca joining us for the holistic healthy food habits, and she's going to speak to us on these healthy habits and how they can fuel us from the inside out, and eating mindfully can create a profound impact on our energy levels and our overall wellness. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Bianca, and you can introduce yourself, and then maybe once you've introduced yourself you can sort of dive into the role that food plays in our emotional and mental wellness.
Of course. Well, thank you for having me and thank you for hosting this summit. I think it's above and beyond. It's the perfect time to jump into this. I have this theory that, the best medicine is prevention. And if we can kind of delve into some healthier or more mindful habits before the winter months come, then we're preventing a lot of the symptoms that arise. Can you hear me well? I just want to make sure. I want to double check that the audio is clear. Good. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So,
audio.
my name is Bianca Bayer. I am a certified holistic nutritionist and a health coach. So I help people predominantly. I love to coach people and help them with their habits and improve their relationship with food. I work a lot with whole foods and medicinal herbs, everything holistic. And because the holistic is, I shine a light on that because although food is I believe, is the fundamental platform from which our health grows, it is not the only. And without all of the other modalities, you're not really going to get anywhere. So, I mean, you can exercise, you can do Reiki, you can do yoga, and you can do it all. But if you're not eating well and if you're not nourishing your body and your mind, then there's going to be an imbalance there. And the opposite is true as well too. You can be eating as healthy as you can. But if you're not engaging in some sort of stress management and movement, then you're missing out. There's some missing pieces of the puzzle there. So yeah, so food and its role with our mental and emotional wellness, well, it plays a significant role in that our brain needs nourishment to thrive. So it's there's two factors here that I look at. We need either we're not getting enough nutrients, so either we're nutrient deficient or we're not absorbing what we need. And so these two things play a very important role. So truthfully, you can be feeding your body all the nutrients that it needs, but if you're not absorbing it, there's a problem there, so you're not going to be getting what you need. To give you a little bit of, so your brain, so our brain and our gut are, there's a strong connection there. I'm sure you've heard it before, the brain gut connection. And our gut is like the hub. It is the most important part of our body, if you will. I mean, our brain's really important too, but if our gut is not healthy, then our brain is not getting what it needs. Our thoughts play a big role in that as well. But in terms of nutrients, I'll break it down. The three main things, and there are others which I will include in a PDF that I'll be offering. But omega 3 fatty acids. So you've probably heard it. You think fish when you think omega threes, but that helps the brain to reduce inflammation. It helps to support our neurotransmitters. So when you think neurotransmitters that help with mood, you're thinking maybe serotonin and dopamine. So that's like the happy neurotransmitters, and the motivating factor, right? That helps us get up and go. So omega 3s help us there. And the foods that are really special is a fish, but yeah, fish, there's a bit of controversy there because there's a lot of toxic metals, right? And so we need to be careful with the types of fish that we're eating. I suggest, the safest way is to get sardines. So it's not as good as, let's say, salmon, but at the same time, you're less likely to be ingesting or exposed to mercury and other toxic
Well,
elements.
on that point of sardines, in Europe, they eat those little fish so much more than we do here in North America. Like that's part of their diet, those tiny fish, whether it's sardines or all of the little fish, that's part of the staple of their diet, and I find that there's a big difference in the way we ingest or we take in fish versus how they take in fish, in general. That's a big generalization, but
No, but it's true. And in
it's a
different
fact.
parts of the
It's a
world,
big factual generalization.
nobody's judging here, but the truth is that the standard American diet is called SAD, is acronymed SAD for a reason, right? We're not getting, we're so, it's so preoccupied with, sort of um, making it available. So a lot of processed packaged foods, whereas, the Europeans eat differently too, the Asians, and if you look at the studies and, if we're looking at health span, they're faring much better than we are here. So there's something to learn from that. But yeah, sardines aren't the most tasty fish, but there are ways of ingesting it, so that you can get your nutrients. They're very high in calcium as well, and vitamin D. And vitamin D is another, and I'll talk about that in a moment, is another vitamin that's really good for your brain and for mood. So omega 3s. But if you're eating a plant based diet, which a lot of people are on that train right now, and I was for a very long time as well, and that's probably the safest way to go. But avocados, flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, in abundance, and making it a part of your daily, snacks and in your salads or meals or whatnot. So that's a good way to make sure that you're always getting some omega 3s. And I highly suggest supplementing as well. So the studies have been done where, they see even people who are eating fish 2 to 3 times a week aren't getting optimal levels of omega 3s. So you certainly want to be getting as much as you possibly can. So another big one out there is vitamin D. So for mood, so if you're not supplementing with vitamin D either, that's another one. So these three that I'm going to talk about, you certainly need to eat whole foods to get your nutrients, but you want to be supplementing because we don't get enough in this northern area where we are, and with all the sunscreen that we put on, we're not getting the optimal amounts of vitamin D that we need to thrive. And it's a mood regulator. It helps in the production of serotonin. So you want, so yes, mushrooms, fatty fish again, but sunlight. So the darker months turn around and we're less inclined to go outside, but getting out in the morning, getting out at lunch for a walk, getting out in the evening. And during the summer months, preventatively, get out before 11 without sunscreen. I know it's an unpopular truth right now, and I know that there is a lot of, a lot of people are probably going to say something about it, but before 10 or 11, let that sun get absorbed in you get that vitamin D absorbed in your skin. And, and then after that, please do put on your sunscreen. But we don't. We're less likely to sit out in the sun without sunscreen. We're less in the sun, period. We're working a lot and we're not as much in the sun as we should be. So that's another one. And our B vitamins. So that's something else you should be supplementing, especially if you're plant based. So, especially if you're not eating any meat at all, you're probably missing out on vitamin B12. And if you're deficient, so there's a strong link between B vitamins deficiency and depression and fatigue. So, if you're feeling low, just make sure you're take a vitamin B complex every single day. Eat nutritional yeast, put it on your popcorn. Like that's a great way to get your vitamin B in there. And of course, if you're eating dairy, milk, cheese, and if you're eating any animal products, eggs as well. So that to me really feeds the brain. And of course, so if you have to focus on three things, those are the three things that I would focus on. But your gut, if we go back now to our gut, we've got to make sure that our gut is healthy. And for that, you want to be able to absorb minerals like iron and magnesium, and those are those are really important for your mood health as well. So if you notice that you're sort of predisposed to bloating and digestive discomfort, I would probably suggest before you even go on this health train on trying to preventatively make your mood stable throughout the winter months, go get a food intolerance test. Try to heal your gut. Avoid the foods that are causing the bloating while you heal your gut, because as long as you are having some sort of inflammation, pain, digestive discomfort, chances are you're not absorbing everything that you need to absorb. So
Can you tell us, well, like, where would somebody go to get a nutritional test that you're speaking of?
well, I do. So I offer food intolerance tests. So you can, if you need to get a food intolerance test, you can get it through, you can get it through me, or you could go through a naturopathic doctor if you have one. If your symptoms are really bad, I suggest going to see a gut specialist, because they are certified to be doing different types of testing and diagnosis. So we're looking at, you could be dealing with maybe SIBO, which is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, and you want to get tested for that. You want to get treated for that. So I can certainly help with any general gut health, like restoration, and that's through using, certain amino acids and probiotics and foods. But sometimes you'll need a little bit more. So I suggest at that point, you go see a specialist for that, a gut specialist. But super important. And then after that, you want to make sure. So people think probiotics when they think gut health, and probiotics. So we've got like this ecosystem, right, in our gut, and it's a very delicate balance between the good and the bad bacteria. And most of us eat too much processed food, are not sleeping enough, are too stressed. This all affects our gut. And there's a gut, what we call is a dysbiosis. So that's an imbalance of gut bacteria, and that can lead to leaky gut. And you've heard that term before, and that's when your gut lining is permeable, which means that undigested foods can get through through the blood barrier, and your body recognizes it as a foreign invader and causes all kinds of symptoms. So once you heal your gut, then you want to start eating foods that are high in probiotics, fermented foods. You can even take probiotics. And the next step to that is you need to feed these guys. So just like humans, they need to be fed to survive. They need
Mhm.
to be fed to populate. So if all we're feeding our body is alcohol and processed food and whatnot, we're feeding the bad guys. So the bad guys are going to populate. So we want to make sure the good guys are fed, and they're fed fiber. They thrive off fiber, short chain fatty acids. You want to make sure that you're eating a lot of vegetables and legumes. So that's how we can predominantly support the gut, and of course, um, helping it with the stress management. So that's, sound bathing, that's yoga, that's Reiki, that's self care, because the less stressed we are, the better our gut health is.
There's a question for you asking if you can speak about prebiotics as well as the probiotics.
Yeah, so that's fiber. So that's really the soluble fiber. So if you can handle it, and if your body um, doesn't react negatively to it, because fiber's tricky. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but all of a sudden, when you decide to start eating more fiber, all of a sudden you're bloating. And we all do, because we have a threshold for the amount of fiber. We have a capacity of what we can take. So prebiotics, that's the food for the probiotics. And that comes in the form of, lentils, beans, and that these are the foods, of course, that do bloat people. So I say start small. If this is something that is important to you and you're learning how to add this into your diet, have a spoonful of beans or lentils with your meal, no more than that. And if you can't take a spoonful, go to half a spoonful and then grow it from there. But we all have a threshold. So even those who can digest it, if we eat more than what we can take, more than our capacity, we will deal with the bloating. So um, short chain fatty acids. So we're looking at things that have, that are green bananas. They're not very tasty, but if you can throw them into your smoothie, they make a great prebiotic. Cold potatoes, cold rice. Um, but truthfully, a whole food diet, if you are eating a variety of foods, and I'll talk about how your plate should look at the end of this, you shouldn't worry about anything. If you're absorbing the way you should and you're eating right, there's no sense in stressing on focusing on the prebiotics and the postbiotics, because if you're getting a bit of everything, then you're giving your body everything that it needs to thrive.
Mm. And I know for myself, like this, we're talking about burnout to brilliance here. This summit is about inner glow. And I know that in this coming months, like I personally feel seasonal affective disorder, like the darker days affect my body. And so do you think that's like a mitochondria thing? Is that like an energy? And like, is there something I need to be fueling for that sort of seasonal disorder where my body feels because of that lack of light, like I already know I'm fatigued. Like the minute this season shifted for me, I feel like I need to nap morning, noon, and night, so what can be done to increase that
Well,
if
the
it's
first thing I would say is listen to your body, because our body speaks volumes. And I think Tara had mentioned it before. Um, if our body needs rest, that there's a reason why animals hibernate during this time of the year, because it's not necessarily a food or a supplement that is going to make them more energetic or give them what they need. It's actually sleep, it's rest. And this is off topic, this is on the holistic side of things, but I think about it as an office, if you will. So if you look at a corporate office building, at night, when everybody leaves, that's when the cleaners come out and they start cleaning the offices. They don't come out during the day. And it's the same thing with our bodies. The macrophages, the cells that come and clean our cerebral fluid, they do it at night, only when we're sleeping. So if you or when your body needs rest. So if your body's in these months, give your body rest, give it the rest that it needs, because that neglecting that is what leads to burnout. When we start neglecting our body, our body communicating to us what it needs. So that's the first thing. But apart from that, we can eat a lot of food. So this is preventative. And if you are already dealing with burnout, burnout is stress, it's fatigue, it's oxidative stress in your system. So when you have more free radicals than antioxidants, and so naturally what our body needs is antioxidants, and not simply again, it can be a people want the pill, but eating foods, so purple foods, foods that are high in anthocyanins, those actually are known to be great mood regulators, very high in antioxidants. So we're looking at like cherries, blueberries, Concord grapes, blackberries, um, beets, cabbage, all of those foods. So if you look at, but they say eat the rainbow, but if it's really important because the higher and um, more colorful your food is, more colorful your plate is, the higher your antioxidants. And there's all different types of antioxidants, right? And so if you look at the colors, you've got, orange, which is orange foods help with what's the word I'm looking for? It helps to regulate blood sugar. So, it's really cool the way it works. And then, a lot of the yellow foods help with inflammation. So, they all serve a purpose, and the purple foods are better for your brain and for mood health. So, I would say eat a lot of purple foods if you can. Also, what
That's so
you
funny because that's the color of the chakra, anyways, right? Purple is like we're feeding that as we talked about chakras in the last Reiki chakra conversation. It's all part of that too. That's like energy flow, right? So if your energy is flowing well, your body is moving forward well as well. So yeah, it's
well,
funny.
that
The purple is the brain.
yeah, the brain and is connected to spirit, and that makes so much sense. And that's so when we're eating the right foods, it's important to connect with these foods, right? Because there's a strong energetic component there where, I always say that the shorter the distance between farm to table, the more nutrient dense your food, the more energy your food still has in it, right? The longer these foods sit on these trucks, it's almost like they come empty of energy, I would say, in such a way. And we're lucky now. We have places like Lufa Farms where we still have access to that, even in the winter months. But my suggestion is, if you have a local farm that you go to during the summer, um, and local is always better. I mean, I know organic is good, but local is best if you can. And you can support them by buying all kinds of root vegetables and squashes because those can last throughout the winter. And so I would say, first of all, eating the rainbow, eating a lot of very vibrant, colorful foods, that can help. Resting, soups. Soups they warm the soul. So there's so much more to them than just because it's eating raw foods around this time of year may be harder for a lot of people to digest. So opting for something that is warmer, something that it's like a big hug inside. And so it nourishes us and it provides this comfort that we're looking for. So we're kind of less likely to grab the comfort food that that's kind of dangerous for us, right? And I'm always talking about processed.
And I mean, I don't know, you'll tell me if I'm right or wrong, but I've also heard that like frozen vegetables, are quite good because they need to whereas freshly picked when it's coming from far away, they pick it really young so that by the time it gets on the truck and arrives into your grocery store, that it does its process of ripening. So they pick it young. But when you're freezing something, it needs to stay on that plant or that tree or in the earth longer because then they're going to freeze it when it's a ripened fruit or vegetable. So when
Yeah.
you're making these soups, if you've got a lot of frozen vegetables, just for somebody who's maybe time constrained, if you're throwing in the spinach and the peas and the carrots and everything that's frozen and you just whip it up with a nice organic chicken stock, you're actually getting more nutrients from that frozen sometimes than something that's taken that whole journey in a truck, right? So
You're
is
absolutely
that wrong? What do you, what?
100% right. 100% right. And it brings me to, you can freeze a lot of things. So during the summer months, when you're gathering your veggie baskets or even your fruit baskets, if you're going blueberry picking or strawberry picking, they freeze so well. You can literally just grab them if it's, and then it's same way they talk about when you freeze something, it's almost like you you hold that moment in time. It's almost like a picture, if you will, right? And so you're holding the nutrients, and yes, you can throw it in a soup using a bone broth for those people who are not vegan. Provide a lot of nutrients. And if we're talking about herbs, nettle is one of those super, if you call it a super herb, it's highly nutritive. A lot of vitamins and minerals, so calcium and magnesium are in this plant. Now, it's stinging nettle for a reason, is what its name is. So you want to be careful when you're picking it, because it will sting you and it'll cause kind of like a rash, a very uncomfortable rash. But you can make teas out of this, and you can take the leaves and put them in your soup. And so so soups are good for the soul, they're good for the body and mind, anything warm. And talking outside of soups, those sad lamps, those lamps that you can buy at Costco. So that really helps with seasonal depression. Again, it's getting that sunlight that we need. And because the sun isn't coming up at 5 a.m. anymore, it's a great way to wake up with this kind of natural light. You can get a 10,000 BTU, which is good. If you have high blood pressure, do be careful, because they can affect you in a negative way. But for most people, this works very nicely. And again, getting your vitamin D. So that oftentimes you'll get vitamin D drops, and it says to take about 1,000 IU. You can go up to 3,000. Some naturopathic doctors suggest more. I say during these months, taking 3,000 IU of vitamin D will keep you healthy, will keep your mood regulated. Most of us are deficient in vitamin D. So the next time you go get blood work done, ask them to test your vitamin D just to see where you're at. They also do a fatty acids panel, depending on who you're going to see. And you can actually get to see if you have optimal omega-3s in your body too. So that's something that you can get tested for. I don't test for those, but you can certainly go see your naturopathic doctor and go get tested for that. Whole grains, that's another one that will help. Again, that's something that you can add to soups, but also to your meals. You should always have a little bit of complex carbohydrates. So this doesn't spike your blood sugar like simple sugars does, like cake and white bread and pasta and whatnot. This is, there's bran to it, so there's a lot of fiber. It breaks down. It stops your blood sugar from spiking. It provides the fiber you need, and again, the vitamins and minerals to support mood and your brain health and gut health too. So that's
And so what about the liver? Like, I know the liver is helps you like to detox like as well. So my understanding is that the liver likes things that are bitter, that we should be feeding it bitter. And so I've heard the dandelion tea is really good, to feed the liver something healthy. Um, and so it's sort of like that bright yellow also, the dandelion that we see in fields, like it's got this childlike um, quality to it. So when you blow those little dandelion fluffs, and so there's a lot in the dandelion that is good for the liver. Do you have anything else that you know of that's good for liver and detoxifying?
Yeah, well, and so for the liver, I often suggest that when we come out of the winter months, we focus in the spring, and that's when the dandelions come out. So it's just natural with the way nature evolves, right? And so in the winter months, hopefully, if you do want to do some sort of a detox and focus on your liver, milk thistle is another supplement or a tincture I would suggest for your liver. Dandelions, any digestive bitters are good too, because like you said, anything bitter will support your liver. And dandelion really is one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites. So really anything that you, you probably wouldn't add to your food. And I'm trying to think of the name right now. Radicchio. I always say it wrong. That's another good one too for your liver because it's 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 just not pleasant. You wouldn't snack on it, or at least most people wouldn't, but it's certainly doing what it needs to do to cleanse your liver. And alcohol. Not to drink alcohol. The WHO and the World Health Organization suggests, no alcohol. I used to love my wine. I used to drink my wine. It was red grapes, right? There's antioxidants in there, but especially as women over 40, 45, it doesn't do our body good anymore. We really need to be careful. It causes inflammation. It causes stress. It affects our gut health, and it doesn't help our liver. So it's incorporating the foods and the herbs to support our liver, but also recognizing that you know um, drugs, alcohol, processed foods, overly processed foods, hydrogenated oils, all kinds of stuff harm our liver, and so we really want to care for our liver. Yeah, that's a that answer your question. There was something else too I wanted to talk about in terms of burnout. Tara had mentioned our body and kind of taking care of ourselves uh, first. And there's an analogy that I use with my clients a lot, and I find it kind of put it into perspective is that our bodies are our home. And so when burnout arises, it's not, the key and the solution isn't to avoid stress, because there's stress all around us every single day. We're dealing with all kinds, and it's not that we can hide from it, because that's not the answer, because then we'd be stuck in our homes, in our rooms forever, just napping. And that's not really what we need to do, or what we can do feasibly. But if you think of your body as a house, and and outside of our house are uninvited guests. So uninvited guests would be, illnesses, diseases, um, people, energy, if you will, people, coming in with uninvited energy. And then there's the storms that happen, which is just life and general stresses. But you see, if we're so busy neglecting the foundation and the renovations that need to be done, and we're so busy helping other people with their issues, well, what happens is those uninvited guests seep in. The storm blows through the windows, and before you know it, there's a house party going on in there, and all the debris from the outside is in, and it's harder to fix up at that point. So you are your house. This is your body is your home. Take the time to fix the insulation, to repair the roof. Don't wait until the storm destroys your home, because nobody else is going to come to care for your home, except nobody else cares as much as you should. And that's the truth. I can give all the advice that I want, but at the end of the day, you are in charge of you. So that let that home be, your sacred place, and that's your body.
I love that. I love that. I have a similar analogy, except for me, it's using a French drain, that you need an internal French drain for all the debris of even like past, because it could be going into ancestral grit as well, right? So you've got your foundations, and you need your internal French drain to allow everything to flow. And so that internal French drain is your organs, your energy, and yeah, so similar analogy for that.
Well, that's it. And because burnout happens, it's almost like we don't. I think people always say, "Oh, well, I've hit a wall," and I mean, I've even guilty. It's happened to me too. Where you're so busy saying no to your body and not listening and saying, "Okay, I'll do this tomorrow, or I'll take the nap this weekend," and then the weekend happens. Well, your body is giving you, it's holding those warning signs. It's saying, it's you're watching the windows kind of push in, and you keep saying no, and then when it happens, you're like, oh, how did this happen? Why did this happen? And so the answer is slowing down, because when we slow down and we um, pay attention to what our body needs, we go into this rest and digest. So it's the parasympathetic, right? And that's when we're able to actually absorb the nutrients. When we are constantly on the go, 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 and super stressed out, we are in fight or flight. And there are other parts of our body that are put into play in that point, because when you're in fight or flight, originally you'd be running from a bear or fighting something. And so your body, your lungs needed, your lungs would need to expand. Your glucose would need, your blood would be pumped with sugar in order to have the energy to either run or fight, but your digestive system shuts down. So the slower and the more comfortable we are and with slowing down and listening to our needs, the better it is just to absorb and to function optimally.
Yeah, that's exactly what this summit is about, because we are in the hunter moon, and the hunter moon was exactly that, that the hunters would go out and gather all they needed in order for those winter months to come in, so that they could have everything that they needed to sustain themselves over those coming harder, colder, darker months. So this is what this summit is like gathering all of these nuggets of information on how we can sustain our bodies. And so it's exactly that. It's the time for rest. It's the time for recuperation and feeding ourselves, so that we've got that energy that we require in order to get us back into spring and brighter, lighter, happier, easier moments. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's hard for a lot of us because we're under this belief, and it's a limited belief, if you will, that when we're doing more, it's connected to our worth. And so there's a strong connection there that it's hard to break, because if we're not doing something, if we believe that when we're busy, we're worthy, well, then what happens when we're not doing anything? We believe that we're not worthy. And so it's hard for people to find comfort there because they're fighting, there's resistance inside. So part of self-care is knowing when to rest, knowing, that it's okay and that you're actually doing well by your body.
Can
Yeah.
you tell us also, like, water obviously is a big huge thing that we all, I feel I don't drink enough water. I know, forget about feel. I know I don't drink enough water. It's something I struggle with, and it's something I have to like work at, having enough water. What is your, like, do you have any tips on hydrating ourselves? And
Yeah, yeah. I mean, water for some reason it's a big one. And I've run into people who hate, actually have used the word hate. It's a strong word, but they don't like water. Now, maybe it's because we're surrounded by things um, that are marketed to us and made in a way so that it's palatable. And what it does is it desensitizes our taste buds, and so water becomes just so bland and so unnecessary. Why drink water when you can have fruit juice? And if you have fruit juice, some would argue that you're still getting water, and you are, but you're getting a lot of sugar with that. So, if you're one that has a lot of trouble with drinking a glass of water, maybe ask yourself, do you prefer warm water or cold water? Try and feel it out, because some people can't drink cold water and vice versa. So, try and find the temperature that works for you. Another trick I would have is leaving, if it's not that you hate water, if you don't mind it, but you just don't remember, you can't recall it, leave a bottle of water in every room. That way you're reminded. Have a little sticky on it that says drink me. If you really don't like water, and well, get a shot glass, because we can all do a shot of something. It goes in there. The whole point is that you don't have to really taste it. So have a shot glass. It doesn't mean that you're going to be taking shots all day long, but at least if you have a shot glass in the kitchen next to the bottle of water, it'll remind you to drink some water. They also nowadays have those wonderful water containers that it tells you how much water you've drank and how much water you have left to drink in a day. So I'd say by, try to aim for 64 ounces or 8 glasses of water, and try to get as much of it in the morning if you can. So anything that you don't like to do, there's a French expression, and of course I can't say it in French, but I know it in English, is like eat the frog. Do the thing that is the most unpleasant. get it out of the way in the morning, and that way you don't really have to think about it. So if you drink the majority of your water before noon, then you can let it trickle. Plus, as women and men, I guess, too, you don't want to be drinking water right before bed anyways anymore, because we'll be getting up and that disturbs our sleep, which is imperative for our health. So
Yeah, for me, it's not that I don't like water. I love water, but you're right. I'm going to show you my cup. This is my cup. And why I put them, these are in the studio also, is because a lot of people fill their big thing of water and then they only drink a tiny amount and then the water sits there. So for me here, especially in the studio, it's like drink these and then just keep refilling them. And so I feel more motivated when this is empty to fill it again than to look at a big one and think, oh God, I gotta drink all that. I don't have time to drink all that. Whereas this way, it's like, oh, I already finished one. I gotta, like, it's empty. I gotta refill it. So it's a mindset of how I'm getting the water into my system. Because if not, if I look at a big one for myself, it's like another task that I've added to my day, and my mindset goes into, oh, I have to do that. Whereas when I'm drinking these little guys, it's just like, oh, I'm passing by. It's like, oh, it's empty. Got to fill it again. So it's just a mindset for me.
well, and I like that you mentioned that it's so that's these little accomplishments, right? You feel motivated because you're like, oh, I did it. And that's how our relationship and new habits really get locked in. It's not through the big strides. It's not through the extreme go big or go home. It's the little. So yeah, having that happen, I love that. And you could even, if you went a step further and put a little sticky on it, and or a post it and wrote, number two, number three. So it kind of encourages you. Okay, I've had 3 glasses today, or this is how far I am away from my goal. But I always say, when you're trying to instill better habits or a better relationship with food, um, to do it, to take the path of least resistance. Because if we try to do something that is going to ruffle the routine, our daily routine, you're not going to stick to it. So it's as if somebody would commit or try to commit to 2 hours of exercise a day when they only have 20 minutes of free time. They may be able to do it for a couple of days, but they're just going to bounce back to not exercising at all. And so with food, I often suggest something so silly, and my clients will laugh at me. I'll say, you know what? Add a new vegetable to every single meal, just one vegetable. And I'll get laughed at. I'll go, oh, that's so easy. I can do that. That's it. Why don't you tell me something? It's something more. And I said, no, try doing it. And in 2 weeks, when we meet again, they say, you know what? That was a lot harder than I thought. How about I do it to just one meal? And I said, okay, so that's the minimum. We create a minimum. And that's probably the best piece of advice I can give you. And we call it the minimum. Whereas, you add a new vegetable to every meal. If you feel so inclined to add a new vegetable to every meal, then great. But if you feel like doing nothing, you still have to add that one vegetable to that one meal. And by doing that, like drinking your cup, you feel accomplished. And then you're more likely to add something else. But habits are locked in through repetition. And so finding the path of least resistance that you can repeat is better than trying to jump to something that can only live for about a week or two in your life.
I love that you've said that. I love it because that is how I live my philosophy of life. It's that 5% increase in nothing can happen at 100%. 100% are crash diets, or 100% are things that, you're going to peak. You can get there like a marathon, but you're not going to do a marathon every single day of your life. You're going to do a marathon for that one day. You practice towards it. But the 5% increments, and those are the levels that become your new baseline. And when you can create a new baseline, you start to work from that forward. So every time you set that new baseline, it becomes a part of you, and it's no longer, because we all live and work to our baselines. So we're always at our lowest frequency and lowest abilities. That's our comfort level. So when we increase the baseline, we start to live at that next level. And then when we increase that, we start to live at that next level. But we'll always be at our baseline, but the baseline can keep going up. But if we just try to get to the peak right away, well, then that's certainly going to be like, you're going to go up, but then at the end of the peak, you tube right down to the bottom again. So I love that you said that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, our bodies, it's how change happens in our bodies. Our bodies are always trying to stay within balance. It's homeostasis. And so, even, when people are trying to lose weight, and they do these crash diets or they do something crazy, that there's something called the set point theory, where your body, kind of like a thermostat, your body is trying to keep, a certain level of, calories in, calories out, what have you. And when you drop that, it thinks that you're starving, or it thinks that you're dying, so it's trying to balance it out. So the same way a thermostat will do anything to get back to its temperature, your body will slow down its metabolism, it will increase your hunger hormone, it will do everything in its power to get you back to that. So that's what drastic changes does to your body in all kinds of ways. And your mental your mental ability and your mindset works the same way, I think. So
Yeah.
do I have a
Not to
second
say that we
story?
can't do a good cleanse every once in a while, like a spring cleanse or a.
Oh my gosh. Oh, please. Yes. And the spring cleanses are my favorite. We should probably talk about that in the spring, because that's certainly, there's nothing wrong with the cleanse. If anything, you can do an actual cleanse along with a spiritual cleanse. You do it all at once and you feel like a new person when you come out of it. So that's, yeah, it's special. Which brings me to herbs. I'm just going to end with that because I know that we're probably near our time, but
We're still good in 5 minutes. Yeah.
okay. All right. So yeah, no, I had written down a few of my, I love medicinal herbs. I love medicinal herbs, adaptogenic herbs, but all herbs. So if we're looking at spices and herbs, so spices are really high in antioxidants. We don't think much about it because oftentimes we'll buy it in this powdered form and we're like, okay, that's what we add to our soups and our food to spice it up. But they're nutritive. They're nutrients. They come from actual food, which is, pulverized and packed into a little package. And so, what's important is to add as many of them to your meals as possible. So, using herbs and spices in all of your meals is the best way to add those extra nutrients. But when we're talking about mood and burnout and feeling that glow throughout the winter months, I have a few herbs, and I'll include it in the PDF that I'm offering as well. But so adaptogenic herbs work better in combination with each other. So you can have them alone, and yes, they will have an effect like ashwagandha or schisandra or holy basil. But if you take them and you put them together in a tea, as Tara was saying, the teas are so lovely, they work in such a beautiful synergistic way. So you would steep these herbs for longer than you would put a normal tea bag in. You would let them steep for about 20 minutes or so. You can top them off with a little bit of hot water or put it in the microwave after. But that's a good way to take in your herbs. You could also use a tincture. So depending, tinctures are a little bit stronger than a tea. And because the herb sits in alcohol for about 6 weeks, sometimes longer. So it's got all that time to have, to extract all the medicinal properties. And then another one is in a bath. So we don't really think oftentimes to put herbs in our bath, but you can get, some bath salts, some Epsom salts, and you can throw in a little bit of Himalayan salt in there and some gray salt. And then you can add like calendula, you can add nettle, you could add lavender and chamomile. So not only does it help to make your bath aromatic in a very natural way, but that also seeps into your skin along with the magnesium from the Epsom salts. So it's a great nutritive way to self-care and keep the mood good without and you're not necessarily ingesting it, but I think baths are key in the winter.
Well, our skin is our largest organ, right? So we're not ingesting it, but we're absorbing it via the skin. So
Absorbing it. So that's so with yeah, so in the PDF, so I'm offering a PDF, a kind of like a cheat sheet of everything I talked about today, but something that you can hold on, maybe put on your fridge so you can be reminded of the nutrients that you need to get through these winter months. Sunlight, there's nothing that replaces sunlight. So I think that is in addition to food, and of course all the modalities that you're going to hear about over the next couple of days. These are all bonuses. We need self-care as a must. I'm also offering, which I've never done before, but I'm offering 15% off the first consultation with me. So you can just send me an email. My email is info@healthyfoodhabits.ca. And you'll get all that in a thing, I think, at the end of this summit as well.
Yeah.
But you can send me an email. I will send you over the PDF with all the foods and the vitamins, and there'll even be a link to some supplements if that's, the route you want to go to. And also, if you do email me, I'll offer you 15% off our first consultation. So
I'm putting it in the chat. So info@healthyfoodhabits.ca, right?
yeah, and if anybody has any questions, uh,
Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing all of this wealth of knowledge. It certainly there's so deep and so much to know, and yeah, your wisdom, and thank you so much for participating in this. And they will get your information and the PDF. If they write to you, they'll get that. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I really truly appreciate that you've taken this time to chat with us and share all the wealth of your knowledge.
thank you. Well, thank you for hosting this summit, and for having me. Thanks.
So if no one has any questions, our next one will be at 1 o'clock. So everybody can now have that healthy lunch break and add their herbs and their medicinal herbs. Throw a little ashwagandha on top of their green salad with some purple cabbage and a little holy basil on top of it. And then see you at 1 o'clock. We're going to be talking with Monica about yoga and spirituality as well. So it's not just about yoga, it's the combination. And so that's at 1 p.m. and then breath work at 2 o'clock. So just come right back on with the same link, and we'll see you at 1 p.m. and eat your healthy greens and you make yourself a nice warm soup or whatever it is right now for lunch. See you at 1 o'clock. Thank you so much, Bianca.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody. See you later.